because I had all this anger and all this bitterness and all the hurts and all the beatings that I got with a hammer, with all this stuff, and it was eating away at me. But I did not like that stuff. It was still inside me. Many years later, that was in about 92. In about 98, emotional events in my life, and we started working on this stuff. My wife and I, we had our problems, and we were trying to figure out what it is. And I said, Anna, you know what it is? It's all that stuff back there. You know, the stuff you can't even talk about. The stuff that hurts inside. That's what it is. We need therapy. We need something to change us. And so what did we do? I started looking in the phone book. I started calling and trying to find a therapist. And I called this one, I called that one. Find a good one. But I found this guy. Now this guy was a minister. And he used guided imagery, which basically are the pictures inside your mind. And so that was the beginning to understanding how you and I have problems. And so here it is. I'm trying to learn and figure it out. I remember going to the funeral home, and I remember writing a note and put it in my dad's pocket, and I tried to heal my hurts, but it was still there. It was there for a long time, and I pushed it back, and I pretended like it wasn't there. But the power of unforgiveness was still eating away at me. I was reading a book around the same time that my wife and I were trying to heal ourselves. I studied hypnosis. I studied mind works. I studied everything. And this one book began to catch my mind, and it began to help me understand the real problem of all your problems as well as mine. My son came in, my oldest son, his name's Adam, and I think he was around 9, 10, 11, 12. And he said, hey, Dad, I want to go to my friend's house. I said, okay, you can go to your friend's house, but be home before dark. You got a ride, right? He says, yes, I do have a ride. Well, I get a phone call. It's after dark. Dad, I need a ride home. And I barked some more. I said, well, I thought you said you had a ride. You said you did. And so here it is. I'm driving over to pick him up, and I'm angry. I'm really pissed. And when he gets in and his friend sits in the back, and Adam is sitting right next to me, I was griping. I was grumping, and I was very angry. And he had this little attitude like, yeah, whatever, Dad. And you know, those attitudes really grabbed me, and they hit the brakes. Adam, if you don't like it, get your butt out. Adam began to cry. Dad, every time you get in the car, every time you drive me anywhere, you're always grumping, always griping, which only made me even more angry because, you know what, he was right. And I didn't know why I felt and acted the way I did, but I acted that way. And I'm stewing, going all the way home, and when we get there, I go in and I bark some orders, and I go to my office, I'm sitting there. And I'm really angry. And I said, why am I acting and doing all this stuff? But I was reading the book, Mind Works, which is basically an NLP book, which is the structure of how the mind works. And it said something like this: if you don't like what you're currently feeling and producing, ask a better question. Don't ask why. Ask what's going on. How can I change this? Where did this come from? And while I'm sitting there and I don't like this, I'm stewing, I'm feeling really bad. And I go, where did this come from? How did I get to act this way? When I was 15, I moved in with my grandmother. The answer just came to me. I'm 15 years old. I move in with Grandma. I have never really was very sports oriented. I barely could go to school. You know, my grades were D's and C's and B's, not B's, but D is it what the F's? Wish it were B's, but I didn't do very well because of my value as a person wasn't there, because I had a great opportunity to experience my father. But in the 7th grade, I started wrestling practices. And I discovered that I can win. And I practiced really hard. I became really good. But my grandfather, every day when he picked me up and took me back to school, griped and grumped. every mile, every inch of the way. And my mind said, that's why you're doing it with Adam. I said, it makes sense. And then later on, I said, okay, how do I fix it? I mean, here I have this horrible problem. I have all this stuff. You know, the lady who's having panic attacks, the lady who had physical pains, the lady who has these relationship issues. Why is it I have this stuff? And I asked the simple question, what would I rather feel? How could I replace this? And then all of a sudden, the memory came to me. And the memory is, here it is, this is my first child being born in St. Anthony's. And I'm sitting in this room, and across the room, I can see the white sheet, and I see her legs, and the doctors are working on her. And they pull out this little bitty baby boy, and they cleaned him up. And after they cleaned him up, they handed him to me. And I got to carry this little baby downstairs and show him off to everyone. All of a sudden, I changed. Because I realized that in order to make a change in your life, you got to let go of something you don't want. Here it is. I was griping and grumping, didn't know that I learned to gripe and grump from my grandfather. And I asked, how can I change this? And the big change occurred when you ask the right questions. When I let go of my grandfather's program that I held within me, all of a sudden, I can ride in the car with my children and there's no gripes or grumps. I changed. That is the real key. Ultimate forgiveness is truly not forgiving my grandfather, because at that time my grandfather had already passed. He was already gone. The forgiveness was really forgiving me for holding on to the memory that I carry within me. If Christy and I are brothers and sisters, and Christy did something, you didn't, but I'm just making this up. Let's say Christy and I are brothers and sisters, and Christy did something to me at 5 years old. And I never forgave her for it. Matter of fact, maybe I did forgive her on a level. Maybe Christy and I, we hang around, we go to eat somewhere. But what Christy had did at me at 5 years old, that information is still inside me. Guess what happens? It'll show up in another pair of shoes. Because I can forgive Christy, and Christy and I are best friends, and we love each other, and we do all this stuff, but inside me, I have this program, this memory that Christy and I experienced, and I may even ask Christy about it. She goes, I don't remember that. What the heck are you talking about? You're making that up. But inside me, you know what? It's real. It is so real to me. Because I honestly believe, and I know for a fact, that yesterday is already gone. And tomorrow isn't here. But right now, you can create your own problems. Now, guys, I believe this, and I know this to be absolutely 100% true. In order for you to feel bad, you got to be good at it. I mean, I'm serious. You got to be good at it. You got to do it just right to feel really bad. I mean, for example, if you want to feel really depressed and you start thinking about all the wonderful experiences in your life, and you start to enjoy the presence of now, and you start enjoying the comfort that you feel in and the smells around you, and you start looking at the beauty all around you, it will screw up every ability to feel bad. Do you realize that? But if you go back to those experiences that doesn't exist except inside your mind, you can feel bad all by yourself. Does that make sense? There's a concept I work from, guys. It's a very powerful one, and that is this. Memories buried alive never die. Memories buried alive never die. The question is, what does that mean, buried alive? Buried alive is whenever I would take a client or a friend, or I would take you and I, and we would go to an experience that happened before now. It could be 5 years ago. It could be 50 years ago. It could be 3 weeks ago. And the moment you go back to that memory, all of a sudden you begin to feel and experience the emotions of that memory. It means it's alive.